Welcome back to Become a Calm Mama. I'm your host. I'm Darlene Childress. I'm a life and parenting coach. And this is part 2 of my conversation with Dr. Angele Close, where we talk about unburdening ourselves from motherhood, from the myths of motherhood, from the stressors of motherhood, and find a new way to relate to ourselves, to our kids, and to parenting so that we feel less stressed and more calm. This particular episode is all about building a new relationship within ourselves so that we don't feel like crap, ultimately, so that we can release ourselves from shame, from guilt, from stress, from showing up in ways that we don't love as parents, as moms in particular. And when we do show up as, a stressed out mom, a new way to relate to that stress in a loving, kind, open-hearted way using the concept of self-led energy. This concept is from Internal Family Systems. Angele is a clinical psychologist and a therapist who works in the Internal Family Systems model and has written a book that really taps into how to use internal family systems in a way to help moms unburden themselves from trauma, from guilt, from stress, from mental burnout, from overwhelm, from that mental load that you're carrying in your head, how to relate to the stressors of parenting in a different way so that you can feel more joyful, more calm, more present in your life so that you can enjoy motherhood and enjoy the experience of raising kids and not feeling like it's a giant burden and really a giant bummer. So this is part 2. If you missed part 1, I encourage you to go back and listen to that one either now or after you listen to this one. And of course, it's really important that you also get a foundation in internal family systems. So I'd love to invite you to go back to my archive and listen to the 3-part series I did where I really teach the concepts of internal family systems. When you listen to this episode, we kind of use the shorthand. We're talking about managers, we're talking about firefighters, we're talking about we're talking about self-led energy. And if you're a little bit lost and confused, go back to episodes 183, 184, and 185, and you'll learn a little bit more about what we're talking about when it comes to internal family systems. And then you'll be able to connect the dots and relate that to yourself as a parent and just really learn to show up in a calm mama way, right? This podcast is all about becoming a calm mama. And Dr. Angele's book is so useful in actually unwinding and unraveling some of the root causes of our lack of calm. So I highly recommend her book. I highly recommend listening to this episode. I loved it so much. I'm excited to introduce you to Dr. Angele and for you to learn more about unburdening motherhood. Okay, welcome back. We're in part 2 and Angele and I were already talking about this episode and I was like, no, let's just start recording because we have so much good stuff to talk about. Today we're going to talk about our mom manager parts and our mom firefighter parts. And these are the parts that you, Angele, have kind of identified as can show up in motherhood or when you're in this believing in the myths of the good mother. Right? Is that fair?
Yeah, many of them are subscribing to the myths. That's what I have found. Not necessarily, but I think when it shows up in a mom, oftentimes as you get curious about it, you'll realize there's some belief in there that this part has taken on. I also found the ideas that make us feel like we need to be a good girl, that we were raised, around this idea of be a good girl. Now it just translates into be a good mom. So it can be both true. Motherhood, but it also, we can follow the thread usually back to when we were little.
Yeah. Well, I was just going to say, it's I feel like the way we were raised is often quite individualized, right? We have childhood wounds and childhood traumas and different parents, like you were talking about your mom being really neat and, in our last episode. And I was like, that's not my experience because I grew up with a mom severely depressed with severe ADHD. So
Okay.
our house was extremely chaotic, and that was then scary to me. And I was like wanting to control my environment. I think that there's these unique parts of us that show up because of our experiences. Either they're reactive to what we were raised. And then I think in this conversation, I want to focus on the almost like, it's so weird to say this, but like being a mom as a traumatic event,
Yeah. Yeah.
which is, I mean, it doesn't have to be, but it often almost is like it's like this at least this experience that we are having that is intense.
Yeah.
And in some ways, especially if you're raising your kids in a Western environment
Yeah.
and if you're high achieving, like all these things, we kind of have general experiences that are universal on some level in this if you're in this culture that we're in. And it's like culture can also create burdens.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And I
And
think the mom culture can.
it is. It is toxic for sure.
Toxic, yeah.
It is
Mhm.
toxic. The myths and the molds and the standards of what we're being held against. And many people don't recognize it, but it's there. So even if it's in the messaging and the faces you get from people, I mean, it's like we've all absorbed it. Dr. Sophie Brock talks about swimming in the fishbowl. So to try and make moms understand, it's like we're all swimming in this fishbowl, but the fish don't question the water. But the water is saying, to moms, you have to be superhuman. You have to be a super mom or you suck, pretty much.
Yeah.
You're failing. And so it is traumatic in the sense that it's oppressive, it's life limiting as long as we aren't conscious. I think you can pick and choose. The liberation comes in awareness of it. So, like our
Yes.
parts, I'm not saying our parts are not wrong or bad. They're trying their very best to help us avoid pain in our life and to avoid things like humiliation. And we want to belong to the group, right? Because we're hardwired to be communal. So we have needs to belong and be loved, and that's all good. But the society and these like myths are mistaken. They're erroneous. They're outdated, and they're usually very patriarchal and oppressive to women. So mothering is mixed in with all of that. And so I think for us to find our own way means kind of navigating the murkiness of what am I believe? What are the parts of me that have come to believe some of this stuff so that I can design my own motherhood? And it can actually be empowering. For me, motherhood is, and matrescence, it is an opportunity for awakening. I think becoming a mother is a gateway for us to become our true authentic self. That's the invitation. So for me, that's the true power. I would not be who I am now if it were not for becoming a mom to my three kids. And it's been a real messy journey.
Yes. I always say parenting is my opportunity for growth. And
Yeah.
yes, and it has been true. And it continues to be, yeah, learning now to let go. But yeah, it's fascinating. I think that sometimes when we talk about internal family systems, we often start at parts. I think it would be really helpful to actually anchor this conversation in self led energy
Okay.
and give us listeners kind of what is possible when these parts are unburdened, are healed, when we let go of some of our myths.
Mhm.
And what does that feel like? And what does that look like? And why is it beneficial to our kids? And so I wondered if you could just start with talking about self energy and being self led and kind of what we are talking about. You've a lot of
Sure.
different ways in your book that you access this. So you could take any angle that you feel comfortable with because there's lots of ways to think about quote self.
Quote self. Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, just to say for those who maybe didn't listen to your previous parts about IFS, so self was conceptualized by Dr. Richard Schwartz, who created IFS. And it's a term that he used to describe what he experienced working with his clients when working with his clients, he would get to a place where there were no more parts that were talking. And the client would just say, "But that's not a part. It's just me." And he got curious about that, and he kind of fleshed it out a little bit and came up to with identifying self or self energy with a capital S. I use soul. To me, that also means that's my soul energy, or people, I mean, you can use different terms, and different contemplative practices have terms for this, right? It's Buddha energy or Christ consciousness, or the word itself isn't as important as you knowing this energy within yourself, which every human has, and it's not changed or tarnished by anything that you've been through or that's happened to you, and it's within you. And so it's, I do like the metaphor that I have heard where self energy is the sun and our parts are the clouds. And so the sun is always there, and sometimes we can have really stormy seas as a human and get really carried away by the wind and the clouds and the rain, which are our emotions and our perceptions. But when the clouds part, when our parts part away and give us space, we have this energy within us that has. I actually like the term too from my mindfulness training, loving awareness. So
Mhm.
Jack Kornfield would talk lots about loving awareness. And to me, that's the energy. And I just want to explain also, it's not like you are living fully in this energy all the time. I mean, there might be some monks out in a mountain somewhere that are only in self energy and resonating in a state that, to be a human in this world is we live with our parts. They help us function, they help us cope, they help us live. So the idea isn't that any of your parts are wrong or bad. We need all of them. So I like to describe this, a human is like a system, and the self is like this golden light. It's the sun that's within us at all times, that if we can relax enough and we don't need to protect ourselves enough, but we're truly safe, it's our true essence. And
Mhm.
it turns out that this self energy or this essence from that place is healing in and of itself. So it's kind of like life force. It's like we all heal, right? I believe we're all self healing. We know this physically because we can see our cuts heal, but we also know this emotionally. I believe I've been a therapist for 20 years. We're drawn to heal ourselves. We want that. And that's the energy that can provide us with that healing and that awakening and that awareness and the truth of who we truly are. So when our parts are not busy trying to make somebody else happy or behave in ways so that I don't get judged. Like you don't have to earn love. Self energy kind of is love. It is
Mhm.
pure acceptance. It's unconditional. And of course, those C's that Dick Schwartz, likes to describe them. But it's an energy of being fully sort of coherent and connected. Your body is in the same place. Your heart is open. Your mind is in the same place. So, for people to start to get a sense, because we've all been there, we've all felt it, right?
Wait,
But
let
as
me offer one thing really quick before we go.
sure,
I,
jump
I,
in.
I was just thinking, I
Uh-huh.
think moms can access it by thinking about the love they feel for their kids.
Okay.
Like,
Yeah.
you know how pure it is when you're not thinking about your kid's
Yeah.
behavior, when you're not thinking about their future or how they
Yeah.
acted. Like there is an essence of mother love that we
Yeah.
can like it's like core.
We
It's
know it. We know it.
very, very solid in our bellies. Like I love my kids. And then I have a lot of thoughts and feelings about them
Yep.
that are not the core thing. And
Mm-hmm.
it's like that thing inside of you that can love your kid, like that's
Yeah.
yourself.
Yeah.
I don't know. I was just thinking that we all can identify with that
When you
feeling.
watch them sleep, like if you have littles and you would go into their room, right? And like look at your infant or toddler, your little one sleeping, right? There's nothing to do, you know. Yeah, you just feel it. You feel it in your chest, you feel it in your
Yes.
heart. But
I
yeah,
had
the
it with my
parts.
19-year-old yesterday.
Oh,
Like he was asleep
yeah.
and he was like taking a nap. And I
Hmm.
was like, oh, he's okay. Everything's okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
I felt love. I felt safe. I felt like
Yeah.
just like yeah.
Mm.
It's so, because I think sometimes we try to tap into it for
Yeah.
ourselves and it's hard,
Yeah.
but as moms, we can access.
It's a gateway. It is
Yeah.
a gateway.
Yeah.
Before,
Okay. So
before,
you were going to say
until
that you were going to say C's, other ideas and things like that.
yeah, I mean, it's an energy of also, I think one of the easier ways too is like when you're a child, before you develop all these burdens, right? Before you start school and you're told that you're not right, or you start to experience things that make you feel like there's something wrong with you. Like, exuberance, awe, wonder, joy, obviously. This is all self energy that's not burdened, right? It flows easily when we have a good hearty belly laugh with somebody, right? I mean, that to me is also self energy.
Yeah.
So it's not just one thing. And there's different ways that we can access it within ourselves, but because we live in these generally unsafe spaces or places that are so stressful, um, our parts tend to be the ones that are, you know, taking the wheel of the car, so to speak. So I use that analogy a lot, right? We can't just constantly be in self energy because our world is quite complex and it's not so safe. So we really navigate it with the help of our parts. But the more that we can unburden our parts, for instance, that came to believe all these ideas about being a not a good mom, that keep us disconnected from the truth of who we are, which is for us to be able to be okay with ourselves. We try really hard to live in this world and avoid pain and judgment and censure from others. But once we can turn towards our parts, understand their roles, and then if they're willing to, with us, from that self energy of, like you said, I'm okay, he's okay, I'm okay, right? In our heart, we know that if we can drop our armor and our self protection, and then we're more aware and conscious to choose, with the help of our parts that want to help us live life for us, but they're not taking over steering the ship. So the threat
Mhm.
isn't as intense, but we need a degree of safety in order to get to that and start accessing it for ourselves.
Yeah.
So
I
it's
think
not
it's
like
helpful
just to say it's not like a light switch, right? It's more like I prefer self energy because it's like how much of that self energy do I have right now? How much
Mhm.
awareness do I have, or how much are the parts taking me over? Sorry, just to
Yeah. No, I think that's really helpful because similar to what I was going to say is that
yeah,
if you can experience it just a little bit, just a tiny bit of what self energy feels like, to me, I always feel it in my body, like a settled thing in my belly and less tension in my chest and less tightness in my throat. Like I kind of, when it's embodied, I can kind of identify like even last week when we asked the question, how do you feel when you hear supermom or good enough mother? It's
hmm
like, notice the tension in your body and the difference, right? And it's like we're working towards this energy that is like, okay, like some kind of sinking, settling. Even as I describe it, my body goes down and relaxes. And
that's right.
then if you have a taste, it's the tiny taste of it, then you can tell maybe when you're not in it.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's really to me what
hmm
IFS, internal family systems, invites us to is this awareness of I have sometimes parts of me that are activated or in control or are like the loudest,
Yeah.
and they are the clouds or the darks. They're covering up that inner calm, that inner sense of self. And to me, internal family systems is a conversation really between the yourself and those parts of you. And in the beginning, what I noticed is that my parts didn't know self existed.
That's right. Yeah.
And it was just
hmm
the beginning of like, hey, do you know who I am? Like, who are you? Like the
Yeah.
self gets to get to know the parts and the parts gets to know the self. And what I learned, and why I bring this up is because my main manager part, every other part of me thought that was me,
Yeah.
thought that was self,
Right.
trusted that very managerial part of me
Yeah.
that got formed when I was in that messy house
hmm
with the unpredictable, unreliable family, scary. It's like she was like, I'm in charge. I've
Yeah.
got you guys,
Yeah.
and took over really self energy.
Mm.
And that that's the biggest conversation I have is with that part. That's the
Yeah.
one I always have to ask if like she'll just kind of let me talk to everybody else.
Yeah.
And when I say me, I'm talking about self. And that's, I think I wanted to articulate that a little bit because it's
Mhm.
so weird to hear about it. And it's like, but what is it actually? What are you saying?
Mhm.
So I don't know if you want to share how you found self a little bit as a mom or what that was like.
Yeah, I mean, I have a kind of a similar story, Daryl. I mean, similar but different, but in terms of, yeah, the me who I thought I was. Like, we can live life very much from a very strong part that's living life for us. Like, what you,
Sometimes that's a hot mess part too. For
yeah,
some
I mean,
people, there's a whole identity. It could be
yeah.
any part.
That's right. That's right. There's no limitations here. In IFS, we call it a self-like part. So,
Self-like.
it can be a little confusing, but it's, I lived in one, yeah, for probably all those early years of motherhood. I was very busy from this very high functioning part. And even I meditated from it and I taught meditation from it. So, I think it can are parts that are high functioning. They do a lot for us. I love those parts. I love myself like parts because they did a lot of life for me when I didn't know how to do it yet. And so it's a real process getting to know our different parts inside and to access that self energy, um, different ways that we can do it. I think it's helped me to experiment, like for sure in the body. I mean, over the years, I keep coming back more and more and more to just being physical, just to somatically, my body, my nervous system has all the wisdom in it. I think, we're very head up, kind of neck up people. Like we live in a culture that values rationality and being logical, and we're cognitive and analytical. And to me, I mean, the wisdom of self and presence and loving awareness and is in our body. We have to kind of be
Mhm.
awake fully in it. And sometimes we have parts that don't want us. So for instance, I talk about this in my book, like because of my trauma history, I have a part that just would freeze like a deer in headlights. It would just be kind of a veil. You could say it numbed me out or just kind of took me out. And for a lot of my life, that's how I was managing to not feel really painful, difficult feelings. And so, I'm so thankful for that part that helped me through those years. But coming to as a parent, here I was going into this state when my kid was emotionally dysregulated and angry, and I would just freeze because his anger was conflict to my
Mhm.
parts that are saying, "Oh, we don't do well with conflict here. Like this is scary. Shut down." Um, and so I had to go to that part that would kept shutting me down in order to be able to be safe enough to be in self, right? So to your question, like when you're inside, it's like, okay, one question that I have found actually is helpful. Maybe other moms will find it helpful, but it's helped me, is just to say, who's here? Who's here inside? And then notice who's the one asking the question.
Mhm.
Because who's here is curious, which is one of the eight C's, right? Like it's that open energy of I don't know. And in mindfulness, we call it beginner's mind. But it's just an attitude of I don't know. And humans don't like I don't know, right? None of our parts really like the I don't know because our self-protective system, whether it's a firefighter or a manager, like they like to be they're on guard. So
Mhm.
that I don't know-ness or surrender or just beginner's mind for me, that's a gateway
Mhm.
to self. So questions of just who's here or just even I care. Now, I care is something that I do if I feel I'm very emotionally activated. I'll just say, put my hand on my chest and I'll say, I care about this. Now, that could be a self like part, a caretaker part within me. That's just because I'm a therapist and I have a mom. So, I have a part that's really good at caring for people and having compassion. And if it's a self like part or it's self energy, it could, or is it a bit of both? I don't really care because the fact is it feels really
It's
good.
soothing. Yeah, it's working in that
Yeah,
moment.
right. So it works and it's a window into kind of regulating and calming my nervous system. And it's probably got a little self energy. Our parts carry self energy too,
Of
right?
course, because they're
I don't know.
part of
I
us.
don't know
Yeah.
where I went with that response, but is that
No, it's perfect.
wanting to
I
go?
I do like the hand on your heart. I learned that
Yeah.
years ago, and
Mhm.
how I was taught like that. you actually are giving yourself oxytocin when you do that. Like it actually is a neurological, like
Mhm.
hormonal change.
Mhm.
And I still do it a lot, but I did it a lot when my kids were young and activated. And I would just put my hand on my heart and like,
Yeah.
there's so many tools that I teach in my programs, like the pause break and really
Mhm.
connecting to our thoughts and connecting to our body and walking ourselves through the discomfort of the moment and really self-soothing. And
Mhm.
I think IFS can be so helpful if you have the language of like the who's doing the soothing is self-soothing, and
Yeah.
maybe it's not always, maybe it's like a
Yeah.
caregiver part or caretaker part, but like you said, it doesn't really matter as long as you're kind of getting your needs met on some level.
Yeah, I mean, and sometimes we need to develop an inner coach, caring part, right? If we
Mhm.
have a very potent inner critic that's leading us down a pathway of depression or significant anxiety, like it's good to have parts inside that are going to be counterbalancing some of that energy. But this is where kind of some psychotherapy models don't give enough of the healing because we still have these parts. It's still not self energy, right?
Yeah,
So
right.
we're just have an inner war because we have a part that's very inner critical, and then we have a part that's trying to say, well, no, you're not, and kind of coach that. So, it's better if we can access that self energy. It just sometimes it takes us a lot of time. We might have a lot of parts that don't feel safe, especially if you grew up in a home where being in self energy was punished and you were it led to more trauma or more abuse, then it's real. That person's real. It's going to take a lot of time to really feel like those parts are willing to sense that energy for it to even be safe.
Hmm.
Um, Not everyone will resonate that, but some people will get that. That
Yeah,
it can
right.
be hard to feel safe enough to be in that space. So the body, right? To be in the body, right?
Hmm.
How can
Hmm.
I feel safe in my body? And I think nature is a beautiful gateway for self. People will just say, "Well, I'm not religious, but I like going on walks."
Hmm.
Like I
Hmm.
like that. So obviously when we can be in there's energy coming from nature for us if
Hmm.
we are able to, be near water or trees or even owning your own plant can feed those needs in that same way to connect us to something greater, which is what self energy is.
Yeah, so beautiful. Well, I love how you said like who's here, and I think giving some language, like I was talking about that we all have like parts, like my iPad girl. Okay. That's like I named her, I got to know her, I have wild child, like I've got all these different parts, right? Because I've done parts mapping and done the IFS work. But maybe someone's listening, like, what the hell are you talking about? Um, I wouldn't mind talking about like mom manager parts, like you talk about in your book, or mom firefighter parts. And you mentioned quite a few, not quite a few, like it's too much, but you kind of define different types, almost archetypes in some ways
Mhm.
of parts that show up in motherhood for some of us at certain times, or maybe we live in those parts.
Yeah.
And I think identifying just some language of like, oh yeah, I have that okay, I could see myself having that part activated sometimes, or oh yeah,
Mhm.
I do that too. Oh, that's a part. Oh, I
Yeah.
didn't realize that was a part. So
Yeah.
kind of giving some words,
Sure.
generic. And then if you want to go deeper, if you're listening, you want to go deeper, like getting Dick Schwartz's book, No Bad Parts. There's a Richard Schwartz. There's a bunch of meditations and kind of you can get pretty far with that book. Um,
Yeah.
we're not going to talk about exiles or unburdening necessarily on the podcast, but just kind of
Yeah.
identifying when what I'm hoping is that everyone's like, oh, that's an activated part of me that's coping with
Yeah. Yeah.
stress, overwhelm, a negative thought, whatever it is. Like that's not me, that's a part. And then we
Yeah.
can start to have compassion
Hmm.
for
Hmm.
those parts
Totally.
and love them and tell them they don't have to work so hard and like yeah. So tell me a couple of mom manager parts, cuz I definitely when I read this section
Yeah.
of the book, I was like I have seen these in my work so much with my
Yeah.
clients.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which one have you seen them like one of the most? Would it be the task mouse? Like, I mean, we talked last time, right, about the invisible load and what it means to be a mom in this day and age. So
Yeah.
that one makes a lot of sense.
I I think I
Yeah.
see definitely like people pleaser a lot, and I that comes up a lot in parenting right now because
Yeah.
we don't want our kids to be unhappy. So
Hmm.
it kind of goes to that like not trusting in resilience and
Yeah.
over gently parenting, right?
Yeah.
Like kind of,
Yeah.
parenting too gently. It sounds so weird. And the taskmaster for sure, I
Yeah.
see quite a
Yeah.
bit. And that is like that um managerial role, right? Where
Yes.
moms are really stuck in that. And then the measurer for sure is
Oh,
like
yeah. Yeah.
so much of that happening.
Yeah.
So if you want to just talk a little bit about
Yeah.
those. So even as I'm saying it, maybe you're like
Yeah.
listening, someone's like, taskmaster, yes. People pleaser,
Yeah.
yes. Measurer, yes.
I hope so, because I mean, and parts are going to want different names, but yeah, hopefully, if people are already resonating and going, "Oh yeah, I have a taskmaster," or like, I mean, it's a doer part, right? It's as we talked last time, that just the breakdown of how many things or moms are trying to deal with to navigate a family in this day and age. Um, Whether they work inside the home only or also outside the home. I mean, they're just juggling so much. So this is going to be a manager part that's going to take care of all of the stuff. And it
Mhm.
might be a bit perfectionistic, so it wants to be super mom and it's doing all of the things. And so it's carrying that invisible load in the brain. That's like, oh, I got to do this, I got to do that, juggling all of the things and getting it done, right? Like I'm going to sew the dance costume and
Mhm.
it helps us achieve our goals. It helps us take care of those multiple tasks on that never-ending to-do list. That's our taskmaster.
But when we
And
lead from that part,
yeah,
there's not a lot of joy,
yeah,
right? There's not a lot of like I feel like time. I feel like when you're in self-led energy, you can slow down time. So that taskmaster part, that perfectionist part, achiever part, it's like really rushed. It feels like there's never enough time. Um, so that feeling of feeling rushed, overwhelmed, like not just going through the motions. So kind of the
autopilot
emotion,
can feel autopilot for
yeah,
sure.
kind of
Yeah.
the emotion of all that when we can have self lead our lives on to some level or work with the taskmaster part
Mhm.
in a way that's loving and gentle and like collaborative on some level with maybe dropping some expectations too. Like, is that how important is that? Is that really what you want to do? Kind of being curious and compassionate and slowing down time. But I think when we're in the manager part, and it feels like everything is really intense and hard and negative, and
Yeah.
you're just like,
Yeah.
get it to come on, we gotta go, let's go. Weird. That's when it's like, maybe you can invite self
Yeah.
into that moment.
Yeah. Because it is for sure a time clock watcher because it's taking all the kids to all their sports and getting the dinner and doing all the things. And and it wants to do them well. Like, I mean,
Yeah.
these are good parts that want to do it well, and they probably have absorbed this idea of what it means to be a good mom, which means your kids aren't late for school and you're not late for baseball, and
And they've had a
so
high protein snack before breakfast, and they
yeah,
also
and me
have.
too. That's right. And they've got their hair brushed, etc., right?
Mhm.
And so where if we're running too much from this part, this is where we can have tough parenting moments because it's like, oh, suddenly though my kid is frustrated because her socks aren't fitting right. And so the taskmaster is looking at the time and saying, well, I don't have room for you to not be okay with your socks right now. Right.
Mhm.
And it's got I probably am exuding the tone right now, just even imagining it, right? I feel that energy already. And the
Yeah.
taskmaster part is like, suddenly I don't care about what's happening with my kid here. We want to bulldoze past, like, we don't see the problems or the moments that our kid need us to connect.
Yeah, we're
And
not doing the
we just
thing
want to
that we
get it
say we want to do, which is like I don't think of it as gentle parent, connected parenting,
done. Yeah.
and that I want to show up as like a compassionate, connected parent. I want to actually show up as a self-led parent, right?
Yeah.
In that
Yeah.
energy, and yet here I am in this moment, not giving a shit, and
Yeah.
then like I don't care. It doesn't matter. You did that yesterday, like,
Mhm.
and then you feel terrible. Then you go like it's like. you're overachieving, then you don't succeed, and then that critic measurer part now
Mm.
starts to talk. And like, what's that one sound like? Who's that one?
Mhm.
Who's that?
Well, yeah, let's say follow that same example, and then you get in the car and you're driving your kid, and so now your now you're in the car, so you're
Yeah,
not
you
doing
did it.
anything.
Check box. Good
Yeah,
job.
so you checked it off, but you're in there. But then, your kid thinks you suck, and that doesn't feel good, and you don't feel good because now that part that was doing the thing is maybe subsided, and now you start to feel like that sucks, or you start to feel guilty. You can be berate yourself because that's not really, in that moment that you were not from being self-led, and so it didn't feel good. You didn't get the impact that you would like to have. So those are those mini parenting moments, and those are moments for repair, so that's an
Mhm.
opportunity where if I can get a little of that self energy, it's usually because now my nervous system is relaxed a little bit, I have a little more awareness, and I'm like, oh yeah, I was just taken over there. And so this is a moment having that language where a mom can recognize, oh, that was my task part, or whatever part feels good for you to call it. Maybe you call it Barbara. Like, I'll sometimes I give them a name, personify. Oh yeah, Barbara, who's really oriented towards getting, being on time. Barbara gets really annoyed because all she cares about is being on time. But
Mhm.
ultimately, that's, in conflict with my value, which is I would rather be there to meet my kid's needs in that moment because my kid in that moment, her needs or his needs or their needs are more important than the time, right?
Yeah,
So this
time
is
is
like,
such
oh,
a
it's huge.
it's
It's huge.
so stressful for parents. Yeah.
No.
And we make it mean so much, particularly in our Western culture. Like I
Yeah.
don't ever, I'm like, why is 10:01 late? Like I just like what if
Yeah.
you just stop and go to the bathroom? Like I don't know. Like it just feels so intense. Like one
Yeah.
minute. It's like it doesn't
Yeah.
need to be so
Yeah.
intense, but it is. There's a lot of expectation, and then we carry that. I think that's not in the myth, but it's
Yeah.
definitely one like good moms are on time.
Yeah. That's right. Good moms get kids to school on time because that means
Or everything on time.
you're
Right.
functioning with it, you're functioning within the world, and if you're not on time, yeah.
You're
Uh,
obviously a
yeah,
disaster.
yeah.
Yeah.
And the other thing about our taskmaster, I mean, it's exhausted. So it also doesn't, if it's gone too long and we can't relate to it from our self energy or other parts that are good at kind of balancing the system, we can't rest. So a lot of moms, well, their taskmaster is so on 24/7, they can't sleep. Like they literally
hmm
have insomnia. They're
Yeah.
sitting and maybe I'm watching a show with my partner, they're watching the show, but I'm just watching it physically, but sitting there and I'm still thinking about all the things I have to do. So I'm not really tuning out enough to relax my nervous system. So that's an energy that when it's in extreme, it's really exhausting and it's really draining. So if a
Yes.
mom's can see that in herself, recognize that so that you can help go, okay, what do I need to balance out a little bit more? And ask that part, would you like a break? Like, I see that you're
Mhm.
working so hard. Thank you. Because we want to give that part gratitude first and acknowledge it. But like you said, Darlene, even sometimes introducing it, that part doesn't know. So it thinks I'm doing life all by myself. And if I don't
Yeah.
do it, nobody's going to do it.
hmm
So that first introduction from our self energy, from our core, adult, conscious, grown up self to say, hey, I see how hard you're working. Yeah. Oh my goodness. Thank you so much for doing all of these things for me. Would you like a break? Like, and then we start that relationship with that part.
Yeah.
Find a new way. Yeah.
And I think in my coaching practice, I think I'm all often self, like just asking those parts questions
Yeah.
and offering like, what would it look like to take a break? Or, would you
Yeah.
like one? Or what would that break even look like? And what would you do during it? And, kind of,
Yeah.
playing that out a little bit. And
For sure.
identifying the fear. Like, what are you afraid of if you were to take a break or,
Yeah. Well,
relax?
and this is where you're going to get the myths, right?
Yes.
Well, if I don't do it, nobody's going to do it. Well,
Yeah.
and if I don't get my kids to school on time, the teachers are going to think I'm a bad mom or
Yep.
something,
Right. Or
right?
my kids will be,
Yeah.
socially, rejected or whatever because they don't look a certain part or show up at the right parties or whatever the things are that we're worried about. And
Yeah. There could be lots. There
so
could be.
many. And I like
Mhm.
for me, I think I was always a little bit afraid of my firefighter parts. And so I want to talk a little bit about that. So for
Sure.
like the way it plays out for me is that the fix it fuckets. So I like have this fix it energy, and then if I get tired
Hmm.
and I have to stop, then my firefighters are going to take over and they're just going to be like, fuck it, burn it all down, sabotage everything I've been doing, ruin it all. And I like let that happen sometime, especially before I was aware, and
Hmm.
then end up in like these firefighter parts, which you name as like the scroller, the number. It doesn't, you read it better. Person who numbs themselves, the shopper, the snacker, binge eater, or the drinker. Those parts would take over, but then they would also sabotage all my work. And then because they are not also supposed to be in charge.
Hmm.
Like scrolling is not a genuine rest
Hmm.
for me, and for most people, it's not.
Yeah.
It can be a form of mental break,
Yeah.
but it doesn't actually rejuvenate me. There are other things that do. And when I am in self led
Hmm.
energy and I let my activated manager parts know
Yeah.
that I'm not going to let firefighters come in and ruin everything while you're taking a nap.
Right.
Like,
Right.
I think I had almost an existential fear that if I stopped, I'd never start again. If I didn't keep to this, but I had evidence of that too. Like, I
Sure.
eat very, very well. And then all of a sudden, I eat 10 chocolate chip cookies that I just made because they're delicious and fuck it. And I made them anyway. And they're
Yeah.
like all that. So
Yeah.
I think that plays out for moms. And like,
Yeah.
how do we get to that soothing
Hmm.
self place?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, because they're so extreme, right? Because we're trying to be the
Yes.
super mom, and then there's going to be um, an equally intense opposition that has a different agenda. I mean, our parts all want the best for us, but their agendas are crisscrossing, and so that while the manager wants to eat healthy and be the right size, et cetera, because most women have absorbed a lot of those myths too, right? Which we want
Mm.
to look good, but we want to feel good. So I'm not saying it's all superficial, but oftentimes, right, those are the parts that are wanting us to work towards those goals. And and if we're exhausted and we're depleted, then oftentimes then our firefighter is going to respond in kind with a similar kind of intense energy, like 10
Hmm.
cookies instead of two, right?
Yes.
And
Yes.
so to anchor, like you said, Darlene, from that, if I can communicate to these parts from that anchor of self energy and see both of them, right? And actually see from that place that they both care about me and are trying to accomplish things. And, as you know, in the practice, you would have those parts even communicate to each other. But we can start by seeing each good intention, right? We often, the firefighters get shamed a lot. They get a bad rap because they aren't as positively reinforced in our society as Supermom is, right?
Hmm.
And so they get
Oh
a
yeah,
bad
these
rap.
things like you're a achiever,
Yeah,
you're a caretaker, people pleaser, mama bear, perfectionist, you know, oh, those are you're a good
good.
mom.
What a good mom. What a good woman. What a good
Uh-huh.
wife. What a
Yeah.
good sister. I mean, they're all those
Hmm.
aspects
Yeah,
of,
so you
yeah,
can feel
yeah,
like if I let those go, I'll lose part of my identity. Oh, people won't like me as much. Then also these firefighters will take over. They'll really fuck it all up. I know I want to just kind of narrate that a little bit is because I think when we hear things like this, talk about, we're not talking about the challenge of it. It's like, here's your best practice. And then you're
yeah.
like, do it. Good job. And then someone goes and does it and they're like, this is not disaster. It doesn't feel, it's not, I'm not as, and then they go back into the criticism like, well, Angela and Darlene are so good at it. And it's because they're so educated or whatever they do. They measure. And it's like, no, girls, we all have to figure out how to love ourselves through this messy middle of it. Like,
Yeah.
and that to me is radical self love is like the ultimate hack to get to
Yeah.
self energy is like,
Yeah. Yeah.
I, the self love you, and I'm not going to let anything hurt you.
Yeah.
And I think about self a lot of times like like a perfect parent,
Mm-hmm.
or
Hmm.
when you have a 4-year-old and they don't want to go to preschool and they're like, you're gonna forget me. You're not gonna come back, right? That's like their scared part activated. And of course you're not like, I mean, maybe I will. Ugh, I don't know. You're never like mean about it. Like, oh, but I was there yesterday. You kind of are like,
Yeah.
honey, let's talk about that. Like the perfect parent, not that we need to, there is one, I guess, like self would be perfect.
Yeah.
We don't have to be, but there is an energy there that we can, is available to us and to our kids of like, shh, let's just break this down a little bit, you
Yeah.
know, slow it down, have a conversation,
Yeah.
soothe, connect. That doesn't mean you don't have boundaries or limitations. It's like finding the thing that that person, that part of you needs to hear in order to maybe back out, back off a little bit or show up a little bit more, whatever it is.
Hmm. From that loving space. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And and just to kind of jump back a little bit in terms of what you said, I agree with you, Darlene. The journey is self-love, and that's what I have found IFS to be, is compared to a lot of different practices or therapeutic things that I've tried. It is the most that I have come to fully love myself because it's through each of these parts that I would say, even if when we can connect with our firefighter parts, the one that eats 10 cookies, and truly understand what it's trying to do for you, and organically your heart opened with that compassion for it, that's some of the deepest healing available to us, because it's easier to like the one that takes care of all the stuff, right, that does all the shit, and everybody thinks she's nice and great. It's harder to connect with and love and truly love and feel compassion for the ones that get a bad rap, that make us gain weight or drink wine or numb us out and take us out of our present moments. We don't usually like those, right? We have parts that don't like them, but self loves them all, right?
Yeah.
And so I have found that working with my little firefighters that are trying to numb the system and rebalance it through motherhood really was the most impactful.
Yeah.
And as I was able to accept them and embrace them and love them and see what they were trying to do for me, I mean, they just open up so much space and energy for lightness and
Mm-hmm.
joy and being able to laugh. And because those taskmasters, right, are just pretty rigid, pretty controlling, pretty strict. I was pretty self-critical and perfectionistic. So yeah, there's such beauty and potential in us getting to know the parts of us that we call the firefighters that want to
Mm-hmm.
just fuck it, you know?
Yeah. I
Mm,
100% identify with
yeah.
not putting baby in a corner and being like, stop it, firefighters, you're wrong, but inviting them in. And I think IFS does such a beautiful job of, I love your part. Thank you. And how can you actually work well in this system? And
Yeah, and what role do you want now, right? Because
yeah.
they had to come in always before, as you described, and just like douse the fire, douse the fire. But because you've done your work and you're healing and you've done so many unburdenings, it's like they don't need that job description needs to change, because
Yes.
you've developed these skills and capacity from self to hold your own pain, right? To be with the stuff that's coming up. So you don't need them to kind of fly in. Like there aren't alarms. Like you said, there's maybe some minor thing and then they show up and they're not needed. So it's like what else could they maybe do? No, and it's just like that's amazing.
When I was joking last episode about like familying, like,
Yeah.
because there used to not be a word for parenting. You were just a parent, like you were a family. And now, like, then we made parenting a verb. And I'm like, can we make familying a verb? And it's like within myself, there is a family and the self energy. If there's a family, then that is like the perfect mom, dad kind of model. And that
Mhm.
is often what I'm trying to tap into with my kids, like not show up as a manager or not show up as a firefighter. Because I think if we show up as firefighters with the kids, like, what are you thinking? Do you know? Like, especially teenagers, or toddlers, pretty much the same. And if I come from the energy of like curiosity and compassion and like, there's no emergency here,
Mhm.
then I can parent them in a way that they feel seen, understood, they do their own thinking. Like that self parenting energy is so powerful, but we can do it within ourselves and then also take it out and bring it into our family.
Absolutely. I mean, that's been my experience was that as I started to experience more self energy and like love my parts, get to know them and understand, they could soften and they could shift and change, right? So my part that would get in a fight, say with my son, like, well, and I'd have this little voice in my head, like, are you going to let him talk to you like that? I mean, I don't even know where that comes from, but it's in my head. It's like from the culture, from these generations, and my part would take that on. And now I'm disconnected from him because I'm now in this adversarial position. My part is at war with my son. My part didn't even know that was my son, right? Like, and I had to, when I went to that part, it was like some soldier, showed up as this soldier that just didn't want, I mean, it was a good part because it doesn't want me to be disrespected. That's a good part. I
Mhm.
need that in my life. But it really sucked as a parent because it was creating real disconnection with my son. And when I could say to this part, that's my child, it didn't like you said, sometimes our part don't even know that self energy is there. It didn't know that was my son. So I
Right.
had to explain, well, this is our son and he's not disrespecting us. This is his, and I had this full dialogue with this part. And do you know, Darlene, after that, I did that work with that one part, it never came up anymore when my son would feel dysregulated. It never came
Beautiful.
up anymore. And it was so helpful to me as a mom because that part was kind of like,
It
speaking
was
of shifting my,
confused. It was didn't
yeah,
have enough information.
it didn't. That's right. It wasn't updated. And when I
Hmm.
could give it that update and it wanted a new role in my system, but it was like, oh, okay, yeah. We can shift. We can internally shift. So it changed my inner reactivity. And then I ended up feeling actually like a better mom because now I wasn't kind of taken over and it's almost like a sabotaging. It felt like this part was sabotaging my parenting. It
Hmm.
wasn't it wasn't trying to do
It's
that.
trying to protect you.
That's right. It was trying to
Mhm.
protect me. So I could reconfigure that understanding with that part. And talk about like making things easier, right? The total reactivity that I was juggling with when this part would jump in, it was awful. And it was awful moments that triggered other parts. Like I'd feel guilty, I'd be self-critical. And so
Yeah.
but just being able to do that work of shifting that, helping that part pick a new role in my system. So it's still there. It still wants to make sure that it's setting a boundary for me, like you mentioned in terms of gentle parenting. Our parts can really guide us about where boundaries are healthy and good and we need them for ourselves and to teach our kids to have their own boundaries, right? Our kids have parts. We didn't mention that yet, but we all do, right? And so it's really, really helpful to have that language, to have that lens, and then to know that there's so much that we can do just within ourselves to be able to show up differently with our kids.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it is so powerful. Like I think about how we're often trying to deal with our reactivity
Yeah.
and repair our reactivity and
Hmm.
maybe prevent our reactivity.
Yeah.
But if you recognize that your reactivity is coming from some fear that you're going to get hurt or that, you know, you are hurt and that you need
Yeah.
to be soothed in these firefighting ways, when you are able to go into that root and heal it, then you literally, like what you said, you no longer are reactive. And it feels miraculous or like, wait, is this some voodoo magic trick? What's going on? And it is having an internal dialogue and a relationship with the activated part and getting curious and giving it some information. And then it starts to calm down and
Yeah.
like your soldier stand down,
Yeah.
right? Yeah.
Stand down. That's right. Because I'm the adult and I can do it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And it can trust us. The more we connect with our parts, the more they trust us, and the
Yes.
less extreme and chaotic and controlling gives room for a lot more fun and a lot more connection and a lot more
Yes.
compassion. And yeah.
And the peace and ease and
Ah,
yeah,
all good
just
stuff.
the thing you want in
Yeah,
your house, right? Is to feel like
that's right.
joy and peace and ease. And it's like getting these activated parts, to find different jobs or different ways of relating and dealing with those myths that we talked about last week.
Yeah.
Just really kind of letting ourselves off the hook a little bit, decreasing some stress, some pressure. Those are really important kind of external ways that you can relate to the world differently, and then internally how to relate to yourself differently
Yeah.
is kind of this inner outer work. I cannot wait for your book to come out. I can't. It's like I want every person to have it. I want every person to have a copy of No Bad Parts and then your book next to them. And you just next 6 months, just do all the exercises in those two books. And then talk to us 6 months from now. Don't listen to more podcasts. Don't do anything at all except be with your parts. And yeah, you're gonna find these freedom and healing. Your book needed to be written. I'm grateful that you wrote it. And I know it's gonna do a lot of work, good work in the world. So congratulations.
Thank you. I just wanted to get to the moms who need it and want it, and because I know they will benefit from understanding themselves in a new way. So
Yeah. Yeah,
yeah.
we haven't even tapped in, like you talk about trauma, talk about
Yeah.
our own like reparenting, breaking parenting cycles. It is just page after page of healing right at your fingertips. Literally, you're holding it. You just get to like experience being felt, seen, understood, and then also a pathway towards wholeness. So thank you. Thanks for being on the podcast. Thanks
Thanks
for
for
writing the
having me.
book
Thank
and
you.
yeah, doing your work.
Thank you.
Hey, Mama, if you enjoyed this podcast episode, I want to encourage you to do two things. The first is go to my website, calmmamacoaching.com, and get a copy of the Stop Yelling cheat sheet. You'll get a step-by-step breakdown of the most important tool I teach, which is the pause break. And you'll also get 40 ideas to reset your body and balance your nervous system so you don't have to yell at your kids. You can get a copy of that again at my website, calmmamacoaching.com/stop yelling. The other thing I'd love for you to do is go to Apple Podcasts and rate and review this podcast so that other moms can discover empowering and helpful, practical parenting strategies just like you did today. Thanks so much for listening to the podcast. It means a lot to be in your ear every week and to support you on your parenting journey.